Commander Ethan Powell stood at the wide viewport of the Earth Alliance ship Horizon watching the stars. His reflection showed a man with tired eyes and 3 days of stubble. Something was wrong, and he knew it. "Commander, we have movement on the long-range scanners," said Communications Officer Jack Reed. The Vrellan vessel changed course again. Powell frowned. This was the third alien ship this month that had altered course to avoid Earth's solar system. The Vrellans were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful explorers, the oldest known civilization in the Milky Way. They had diplomatic ties with over 300 alien species, but for some reason they had never once attempted contact with humans. "Show me the trajectory," Powell said. The main screen lit up with a map of nearby space. The Vrellan ship's path bent sharply away from Sol, taking a route that would add weeks to their journey. "That's a lot of extra fuel just to avoid us," said Diana Morris, the ship's tactical officer. Her fingers tapped against the console, almost like they're afraid of something. Powell nodded slowly. "And I want to know, what?" 3 days later, the Horizon detected a small Vrellan scout ship drifting near Neptune. It showed signs of damage, possibly from a solar flare or asteroid impact. Against protocol, Powell ordered his crew to intercept and offer help. "This might be our only chance to make contact," he told his doubtful second-in-command, Steve Winters. "If we can help them, maybe we can get some answers." It took 6 hours to reach the damaged vessel. Up close, the Vrellan ship looked like a silver leaf, thin and delicate. No response came to their hails. "Life signs?" Powell asked. "One," said Dr. Maya Harris from Medical. "Weak but stable." Powell made his decision. "Bring them aboard." The Vrellan was tall and thin with pale blue skin that seemed almost translucent. Its large eyes were closed as the medical team moved it to the ship's infirmary. Powell had seen images of Vrellans before, but never in person. This one wore the markings of a high-ranking scientist. "Can you save it?" Powell asked Dr. Harris. "Him," corrected the doctor. "And yes, I think so. Their biology isn't so different from ours. He's suffering from radiation exposure and dehydration." 2 days passed before the Vrellan woke. Powell was called to the infirmary immediately. "My name is Commander Ethan Powell of the Earth Alliance ship Horizon," he said, standing at a respectful distance from the bed. "Can you understand me?" The Vrellan's large eyes blinked slowly. A small device at his throat hummed, and then words came out in slightly mechanical English. "I am Kalex, senior researcher of the Vrellan Science Division." His voice was flat through the translator. "You should not have brought me here." Powell raised an eyebrow. "We saved your life, and endangered your own." Kalex tried to sit up, but was still too weak. "This system is forbidden to my people." "Forbidden? Why?" Powell pulled a chair closer. "The Vrellan Conclave has relations with almost every spacefaring race in the galaxy except humans. We've noticed your ships avoid our system. I want to know why." Kalex was silent for a long moment. "How much do you know about your own planet, Commander? What kind of question is that?" "A relevant one." The alien's eyes seemed to look through Powell. "For 20,000 years, the Vrellan Conclave has maintained strict protocols to avoid Earth and its surrounding space." "Because you don't like humans?" Powell asked. "Because humans are not alone on their world." Kalex's voice dropped lower. "We learned this lesson at great cost, long before your people built their first cities. The Vrellan archives speak of those we call the Shadowed Ones, entities that claim Earth as their domain." Powell felt a chill run through him. "You're talking about aliens living on Earth? That's impossible. We would know." Kalex grew stronger over the next few days. The Vrellan ate little, mostly liquids that Dr. Harris prepared based on data from the ship's computer. Powell visited him twice a day, each time hoping for more answers. "Our ship's historians would like to speak with you," Powell said during one visit. "They have questions about your people." "I imagine they do." Kalex sat up in his bed, his blue skin looking healthier. "But it is I who should be asking the questions. Have you informed your leaders of my presence?" "Yes," Powell said. "They're very interested in establishing formal contact with the Vrellan. Conclave. Calyx made a sound that might have been a laugh. After all these years of us avoiding your kind, they still do not understand the danger. Then help us understand, Powell said. You mentioned the shadowed ones. What exactly are they? The alien was quiet for a long moment. I will show you what I can. He reached for a small device that had been recovered from his ship. These are partial historical records from our archives. The device projected a 3D image in the air between them. Powell saw strange symbols and then images of what looked like ancient Vrellan ships. 20,000 years ago, the Vrellan were different, Calyx explained. We were conquerors looking for new worlds. One of our expeditions found Earth. The images changed to show a blue planet that was clearly Earth. The expedition reported a beautiful world with primitive but promising life forms, Calyx continued. They landed in what you now call Africa. Only 3 returned to orbit. What happened to the others? Powell asked. They were taken. Calyx's large eyes blinked slowly. The survivors spoke of creatures that emerged from darkness, beings that could move through shadows, entities that seemed connected to the primitive humans but were something else entirely. Powell frowned. That's not possible. The survivors brought back recordings. Calyx touched his device again. The image changed. To show what looked like ancient footage, grainy and distorted, Powell could make out Vrellan explorers in strange suits walking through a savanna. Then darkness seemed to pool around them, moving against the sun. The footage ended abruptly. After this, the conclave marked Earth as quarantined. Calyx said, No Vrellan ship has landed on your world since. Later that day, Powell met with Lisa Carpenter, the ship's xenoarchaeologist, in the small library section of the Horizon. What do you make of his story? Powell asked. Lisa tapped on her tablet. I've been comparing it to human mythology, she said. There are patterns that match what Calyx described. Ancient cultures all over Earth have stories about shadow beings, spirits that could move through darkness. You can't seriously believe that, Powell said. I'm just pointing out the similarities, Lisa replied. She showed Powell her tablet. Look at these stories from different human cultures. Jinn, shadow, people, entities that exist alongside humanity but remain hidden. The descriptions match what the Vrellans claim to have encountered. Powell rubbed his face. Even if there was something on Earth back then, we would have found evidence by now. Would we know what to look for? Lisa asked. If these beings can move through shadows, exist partly in another dimension maybe, they might not leave the kind of evidence we'd recognize. Powell's communication device beeped. It was a message from Earth Alliance Command. He read it twice to be sure. We've been ordered back to Earth, he told Lisa. With Calyx, they want formal diplomatic discussions. How does Calyx feel about that? He doesn't know yet. Powell frowned. But based on everything he's told us, I don't think he'll be happy. He was right. When told about their new orders, Calyx became agitated. You cannot take me to Earth, the alien said, his translator making his voice sound higher with stress. It is not safe. The shadowed ones will sense my presence. These shadowed ones, if they exist, haven't bothered us in thousands of years of human development, Powell argued. Why would they care about one Vrellan? Because we once tried to claim their world, Calyx said simply, and they do not forget. They do not forgive. And they are always watching. As if in response to his words, the lights in the medical bay flickered briefly. Powell told himself it was just a power fluctuation. But he couldn't help noticing how Calyx stared at the shadows in the corners of the room, as if expecting something to emerge from them. Would you? Calyx asked. They do not wish to be found, and they do not welcome visitors from beyond your world. The alien closed his eyes. I have said too much already. My presence here will draw attention that neither of us wants. Outside the infirmary, Powell found his first officer waiting. Did you get answers? Winters asked. Powell looked back through the door at the resting alien. I think we just found more questions. And I'm not sure we're going to like where they lead. The Horizon entered Earth orbit 3 days later. Kalex had grown more nervous with each passing hour. He barely ate and kept checking the shadows around him. Powell tried to reassure him, but the alien remained unconvinced. "Your people do not understand what they are doing," Kalex said as they prepared to take a shuttle down to Earth's surface. A security team escorted them to the Earth Alliance Xenological Institute in what was once called Colorado. The building was massive, built into the side of a mountain for security. Dr. Alan Rodriguez was waiting for them at the entrance. "Commander Powell," he said, extending his hand. "And this must be our Vrellan guest. I'm Dr. Rodriguez, director of the institute." Kalex stayed slightly behind Powell. "This place has old stones," the alien said through his translator. "Deep foundations." Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Yes, we built it into a natural cave system. Please, follow me." They walked through long hallways lined with laboratories and research rooms. Rodriguez led them to his private office deep in the mountain. The walls were covered with images and artifacts from around the world. "I've been studying your records, Kalex," Rodriguez said. "Fascinating stuff about these shadowed ones you claim live on our planet." "It is not a claim. It is a warning," Kalex said. "Well, that's why I wanted to show you this." Rodriguez went to a locked cabinet and removed several items. "These are not available to the public." Powell looked at the collection. There were ancient cave paintings, pages from medieval books, modern photographs, and even what looked like military footage. All showed dark shapes near humans, shadows that didn't quite match their surroundings. "What is this?" Powell asked. "Evidence," Rodriguez said. "I've been collecting it for years. Reports of strange shadows, beings that don't quite fit our understanding of reality." Kalex moved closer to the images. "You know of them." "Some of us have suspected," Rodriguez admitted. "Throughout human history, there have been stories, sightings, unexplained events. Most people dismiss them as superstition. I believe there's something more." He showed them a piece of ancient pottery with a strange design. "This is from 10,000 years ago. The pattern shows human figures with shadow figures among them." Powell shook his head. "This doesn't prove anything." "Perhaps this will," Rodriguez said. He played a video on his computer. It showed a military night vision recording. Soldiers were searching a cave. In the green glow of the footage, one of the shadows on the wall moved against the light, separating from the soldier casting it. The shadow flowed across the wall and disappeared. The timestamp showed it was recorded just 5 years ago. "This was classified," Rodriguez said. "A special forces team investigating reports of smugglers using old cave systems. What they found was something else entirely." Kalex made a soft humming sound. "They are becoming more active, more visible." "Why would they hide for so long?" Powell asked. "They have not hidden," Kalex replied. "They have always been there, watching, guiding. But they prefer to remain unseen by most." Rodriguez nodded. "There's more. The Vrellans weren't the only alien species to find Earth, were they, Kalex?" The alien looked surprised. "How did you know?" "Our oldest myths speak of visitors from the stars," Rodriguez said, "but they always left quickly. Some never returned to their homes to tell what they found here." "The shadowed ones protect this world," Kalex said. "They consider it their domain. And humans." "What about humans?" Powell asked. "The records suggest they see humans as siblings," Kalex said carefully. "Different branches of Earth's evolution. You developed in the physical world. They developed in the spaces between light and dark, in dimensions adjacent to your own." Powell looked skeptical, but Rodriguez nodded. "That matches what I've theorized," the scientist said. "But why would your people try to attack Earth if they knew these beings were here?" "We did not know," Kalex said simply. Not until it was night fell over the institute, Powell found himself unable to sleep. The images Rodriguez had shown them kept playing in his mind. He got up and went to the small office they had given him to use. He accessed the Earth Alliance database with his commander codes. If what Rodriguez and Kalex were saying was true, there must be more information somewhere. He typed "shadow entities" into the search. A message appeared on his screen. Access restricted, Operation Umbra clearance required. Powell frowned. He had never heard of Operation Umbra. He tried several other searches related to unexplained phenomena and shadow sightings. Each time, the same message appeared. A soft knock on his door made him look up. Rodriguez stood there with 2 cups of coffee. Couldn't sleep either, the scientist asked, offering Powell a cup. What's Operation Umbra? Powell asked directly. Rodriguez's face changed. Where did you hear that name? It keeps coming up when I try to search for information about these shadow beings. Rodriguez sat down heavily in a chair. I was going to tell you tomorrow, but I guess now is as good a time as any. He pulled out a small device and pressed it. A faint hum filled the room. Privacy field, he explained. What I'm about to tell you is classified beyond your current clearance. You have higher clearance than a ship commander? Powell asked, surprised. In certain areas, yes, Rodriguez said. Operation Umbra has existed for generations. It monitors and responds to what we call non-standard phenomena around deep archaeological sites. You mean the shadow beings? Among other things. Rodriguez took a sip of his coffee. There's someone you need to meet. She can explain better than I can. The next morning, a woman arrived at the institute. She introduced herself as Karen Mitchell. She looked ordinary with brown hair and simple clothes, but Powell noticed how Kalex reacted to her presence. The alien became very still, watching her carefully. You feel it, don't you? Karen said to Kalex. What I am. You are connected to them, the alien said softly. Karen nodded and turned to Powell. Commander, what I'm about to tell you has been kept secret from most of humanity for thousands of years. They gathered in a secure room deep within the mountain. Karen activated another privacy field before speaking. Certain human bloodlines have served as intermediaries for what we call the Guardians since before recorded history, she explained. My family is one of them. The Guardians? Powell asked. You mean the shadow beings? That's what they look like to most people, Karen said. But they're much more. They are ancient intelligences that evolved alongside Earth life, but exist, partially in dimensions humans can't normally perceive. And they talk to you? Powell was skeptical. Not with words, Karen said. But yes, we communicate. They consider Earth their ancestral home, just as humans do, and they've protected it from outside threats many times, like the Vrellans, Kalex added quietly. Yes, Karen confirmed, and others. Throughout history, several alien species discovered Earth. The Guardians turned most away. Some they eliminated if they posed a threat. Why keep this secret from humanity? Powell asked. Fear, Rodriguez answered. Most humans aren't ready to know we share our world with another intelligent species, one that's been here as long as we have. Besides, Karen added, the Guardians prefer it this way. They don't want to interfere with human development. They believe we need to find our own path. Powell tried to process this information. So all this time as we built civilizations, fought wars, developed technology, these Guardians were just watching? Not just watching, Karen said, protecting, guiding sometimes, but subtly. They consider humans their sibling species. We evolved on the same planet, just in different spaces. And your group, Operation Umbra, you're what? Their helpers? Powell asked. We're the bridge, Karen explained. When something threatens Earth from outside, we help the Guardians understand it. When humans accidentally disturb places where the dimensional barriers are thin, we help manage the situation. And now? Kalex asked. What will your Guardians do now that the Vrellan Conclave knows one of our kind has returned to Earth? Karen's face grew serious. That's what worries me. The Guardians are becoming agitated. They sense something coming. She turned to Powell. Something big. Outside the mountain complex, the sky suddenly darkened as clouds rolled in. But Powell noticed it wasn't normal weather. The darkness seemed to move with purpose, swirling directly above the Institute, as too late. We were conquerors then. We saw only a valuable world with primitive life forms. We did not see what lived in the shadows until they emerged to defend their home. Outside the window of Rodriguez's office, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the ground. Powell noticed how Kalex moved away from them, keeping his eyes on the darkening corners of the room. Alarms blared throughout the institute. Powell, Rodriguez, Karen, and Kalex rushed to the main control room. The large screen showed a massive storm forming above them, but the weather patterns were unlike anything Powell had ever seen. "This isn't natural," Rodriguez said, looking at the data. "No," Karen agreed. "The Guardians are responding to something." One of the technicians called out, "Sir, we're detecting multiple ships entering the solar system. They just appeared near Jupiter's orbit." The main screen switched to show space telescope images. Several large vessels were moving toward Earth. Their design was unmistakable. "Vrellan ships," Kalex said, his voice low. "A war fleet." "Why would they send warships?" Powell asked. "I thought your people avoided Earth." "They must have detected my presence," Kalex said. "Or," he paused, looking troubled. "Or what?" Karen pressed. "The Conclave elders have always feared the Shadowed Ones, the Guardians, as you call them. Some believe that one day we should return in force to eliminate the threat." Rodriguez looked alarmed. "They're coming to attack Earth?" "Not Earth," Kalex clarified, "the Guardians. My people might believe now is the time to strike." "Why now, after thousands of years?" Powell asked. Karen answered before Kalex could. "The Guardians have been less active in recent centuries. As humans spread across the planet, built cities, covered natural spaces with concrete and steel, it affected the dimensional spaces where the Guardians exist." The building shook slightly. Outside, the strange storm clouds had formed a spiral directly above them. "We're receiving a transmission from the lead Vrellan ship," a communications officer called out. The screen changed to show an older Vrellan. The alien's skin was darker blue than Kalex's, with markings that suggested high rank. "I am High Commander Zivex of the Vrellan Conclave," the alien said through a translator. "We demand the return of Science Officer Kalex and the immediate evacuation of all human settlements within 100 kilometers of your dimensional anomaly sites." Powell stepped forward. "This is Commander Ethan Powell of Earth Alliance. Your ships have entered our space without permission. Please explain your intentions." "Our intentions are to eliminate a threat that has kept us from claiming your world for 20,000 years," Zevex replied coldly. "Our scans show the entities are weakening. Earth's industrialization and pollution have damaged their connection to their dimensional spaces. Now is the time to strike." The transmission ended abruptly. Powell turned to Karen. "Is that true? Are the Guardians weakening?" Karen looked troubled. "They've been changing, adapting. But yes, human activity has affected them." "We need to alert global defense forces," Rodriguez said. "If they're planning to attack..." He was interrupted by flickering lights. All across the room, shadows seemed to deepen and move against the light. Computer screens flashed with strange symbols before going dark. "What's happening?" Powell asked, feeling a strange prickling sensation on his skin. "They're here," Karen whispered. She didn't look afraid, just alert. In the corner of the room, darkness pooled like liquid shadow. It rose up, forming a vaguely humanoid shape taller than any person. It had no clear features, just depths of shifting darkness. Karen stepped toward it. "We hear you," she said. "We understand." The shadow being made no sound, but Karen nodded as if listening. After a moment, she turned to the others. "The Guardians know about the Vrellan fleet," she said. "They're mobilizing." "Mobilizing how?" Powell asked. Before Karen could answer, reports started coming in from around the world. Power outages in major cities, gravitational anomalies near ancient sites, and shadow-like manifestations appearing briefly in public places. "They're preparing to defend Earth," Karen explained. "But they need our help this time." "Why now?" Rodriguez asked. "They've handled threats before." "Because this isn't just about Earth anymore." Karen Spowell looked at the shadow being, then at Karen, then at the screens showing the approaching Vrellan fleet. The choice seemed obvious. "Of course we stand with Earth's defenders," he said firmly. Rodriguez nodded in agreement. What do they need us to do? Karen listened to something only she could hear as the shadow being shifted and flowed. They want to take us somewhere, she said finally. A place where we can communicate more clearly. One of the oldest interfaces. Interfaces? Powell asked. Places where our world and their dimensional space overlap more completely, Karen explained. There's one in Iceland that's been active for thousands of years. Iceland? Powell was skeptical. That's halfway around the world. We don't have time. The shadow being stretched forward, extending tendrils of darkness that surrounded their small group. Powell felt a strange sensation, like being underwater but able to breathe. The room around them seemed to fade. Don't panic, Karen said calmly. They're moving us through their space. The darkness cleared as suddenly as it had come. Powell blinked and found himself standing on a rocky plain. Steam rose from cracks in the ground. In the distance, a glacier reflected the light of the setting sun. They were in Iceland. That's not possible, Rodriguez said, looking around in shock. We just traveled thousands of miles in seconds. Distance works differently in their space, Karen explained. She pointed to a dark opening in the rocks nearby. That's where we need to go. Powell's communication device beeped. Somehow, it still worked. Commander, where are you? It was Steve Winters from the horizon. The Vreeland fleet has entered Earth orbit. They're demanding we hand over Kalex and allow them to target specific locations on the planet. Hold them off as long as you can, Powell replied. We're working on a solution. Karen led them toward the cave. The Guardians have been communicating with humans at this site for over 12,000 years, she explained. The dimensional barriers are thinner here. Inside the cave, the air felt different, heavier somehow. The walls were covered with ancient markings, some that looked human and others that were completely alien. This is one of the oldest records of contact, Karen said, indicating the markings, from a time when the Guardians communicated more openly with humans. At the back of the cave was a pool of water so still it looked like black glass. Without hesitation, Karen knelt beside it. They can speak more clearly here, she said. She placed her hand on the water's surface. The pool began to glow with a soft blue light. The surface rippled, though no one had touched it. Then a form rose from the water, not wet but made of the same shadow stuff as the being from the Institute. This one was more defined, almost human-like but taller, with limbs that seemed too long and a head without features. I am Sentinel, a voice said in their minds. I speak for the Guardians of Earth. Powell fought the urge to step back. We're listening. Earth is unique in the galaxy, Sentinel said. It exists at a dimensional nexus point where multiple realities overlap. This makes it valuable, it makes it powerful. That's why the Vreelans want it, Rodriguez said with sudden understanding. Yes, agreed Sentinel. But they do not understand what they seek. We evolved in these overlapping spaces while you, our sibling species, evolved in the physical world. We have protected this nexus since before your kind made their first tools. From the Vreelans? Powell asked. From many who would use it, Sentinel replied. The Vreelans were not the first to find Earth, merely the only ones to survive the encounter and remember. Kalex, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Is it true that human activity has weakened you? The shadow being shifted, seeming to study the alien. Not weakened, changed. As humans spread across the planet, we adapted. We moved deeper, into our dimensional spaces, but we never left. The Vreeland fleet is here to destroy you, Powell said. They think now is their chance. They are mistaken, Sentinel said simply. But this conflict must end. The old balance is changing. Humans have reached the stars now. It is time for a new understanding. What do you need from us? Karen asked. To bridge the worlds, Sentinel replied. The Vreelans fear what they do not understand. We must show them the truth. Outside, the sky darkened as more storm clouds gathered. But these weren't just over Iceland. Similar storms were forming all over the planet, visible on Powell's communication device as it received global updates. What's happening? He asked, looking at the screen. The Guardians are emerging, Karen said, her voice filled with awe. All of them. Everywhere. Aid. Humanity has reached the stars. Our fates are linked now more than ever. Kalec stepped forward, surprisingly calm now in the presence of the shadow being. My people do not understand what they are facing, he said. They think the Guardians are weakening. They are wrong. The shadow being shifted, seeming to study Kalec. Then it extended a tendril of darkness toward the screens showing the approaching Vrellan fleet. I believe, Karen said slowly, that they're asking for our decision. Do we stand with them? The Vrellan fleet launched its first attack. Energy weapons fired at orbital defense stations around Earth. Powell watched the battle through his communication device as the Earth Alliance fought back with everything they had. Our weapons aren't strong enough, Powell said, worried. The Vrellan ships are too advanced. But then something strange happened. The Earth defenses began to work better than they should. Missiles moved faster. Energy shields became stronger. It was as if something was enhancing the human technology. The Guardians, Karen said, watching over his shoulder. They're helping. Sentinel's shadow form grew larger. We must join the battle, the being said in their minds. You must come with us, Commander Powell. We need a bridge between our worlds. Me? Powell asked. Why not Karen? She can communicate with you better. You command respect among your military, Sentinel explained. They will listen to you, and you have an open mind. Powell looked at Rodriguez and Karen. What do I need to do? Let them connect with you, Karen said. It will feel strange, but don't fight it. Powell nodded and turned to Sentinel. I'm ready. The shadow being moved forward, surrounding Powell in darkness. He felt a cold sensation as if he were sinking into deep water. Then suddenly his mind expanded. He could see things he never imagined. He could feel the presence of thousands of guardian entities all across Earth, emerging from their dimensional spaces. When his vision cleared, Powell found himself on the bridge of the horizon. The crew stared at him in shock. He knew he had just appeared out of nowhere. Commander? Steve Winters asked, eyes wide. How did you— No time to explain, Powell said. Connect me to all Earth Alliance ships, now. On the view screen, Powell could see the battle. Earth ships were fighting hard, but still losing ground to the superior Vrellan technology. But shadow-like forms were appearing around the human vessels, flowing across their hulls. This is Commander Powell to all Earth forces, he said once the channel was open. Do not be alarmed by the shadow entities appearing near your ships. They are Earth's allies. They are enhancing our defenses. Powell could feel Sentinel's presence with him, sharing knowledge, showing him things. He understood now what the Guardians were. Target these points on the Vrellan vessels, Powell ordered, sending coordinates to all ships. Their shields are weakest there. The Earth forces adjusted their attack. Where before their weapons had barely damaged the alien ships, now they were breaking through. The Guardians were making their technology work in ways it never had before. But it wasn't just in space. Around the world, shadow beings were appearing at military bases, power plants, and communication centers. They weren't taking control, but helping, enhancing, protecting. Through his connection with Sentinel, Powell could see the battle through perceptions beyond human understanding. He saw energy flows, dimensional rifts, patterns of reality that human science had never detected. He understood that the Guardians existed partially in dimensions humans couldn't normally perceive, giving them abilities that seemed impossible. Powell also saw the Vrellan ships as they truly were, not just vessels of metal and energy, but intrusions into the complex dimensional fabric that surrounded Earth. The Guardians weren't just fighting ships, they were repairing tears in reality the ships were causing. High Commander Zvex appeared on the communication screen. What is this? The Vrellan demanded. How are you doing this? It's not us, Powell replied calmly. It's Earth's true defenders, the ones your people have feared for 20,000 years. But you don't need to fear them. They only attack those who threaten their home. Impossible, Zvex said. Our reports indicated they were weakening. You misunderstood, Powell explained. They weren't weakening. They were evolving, adapting, just as they have for millions of years. 3 Vrellan ships exploded as shadow forms passed through their hulls. The others began to pull back. The Vrellan fleet retreated to the edge of the solar system. 4 of their ships had been destroyed, and the others were damaged. High Commander Zevex requested to speak with Earth's leaders. On the horizon, Powell sat in the conference room with Kalex, Karen, and Rodriguez. Earth Alliance officials joined by video link. Zevex's face filled the main screen. "We did not understand what we were facing," the Vrellan commander admitted. "Our ancient records did not fully explain the nature of Earth's guardians." "You came to destroy them," Powell said. "That was a mistake." "Yes," Zevex agreed. "We believed they were weakening. We saw an opportunity to claim a world our people have wanted for 20,000 years. Earth is not yours to claim," Karen said firmly. "It never was." Powell could still feel Sentinel's presence, though fainter now. The connection they had formed during the battle remained. Through it, he sensed the Guardians' thoughts. "The Guardians are willing to establish peaceful relations with the Vrellan Conclave," Powell said. "But you must acknowledge Earth's sovereignty." Zevex seemed surprised. "You speak for them now?" "I speak with them," Powell corrected. "They've protected Earth since before humans built their first cities. They consider us their sibling species. We evolved on the same planet, just in different spaces." Kalex stepped forward. "High Commander, I have seen what these beings truly are. They are not our enemies unless we make them so." The discussion continued for hours. Finally, an agreement was reached. The Vrellan fleet would leave Earth's solar system. A single diplomatic vessel would remain to establish formal relations. Kalex volunteered to serve as the first ambassador. 1 week later, Powell stood with Karen and Sentinel on a beach in northern Iceland. The shadow being had taken a more defined form, almost human-like but still clearly not of the physical world. "What happens now?" Powell asked. "A new beginning," Sentinel replied. The Guardian's voice in his mind was clearer now that Powell had learned how to listen. "For too long we have remained hidden from most humans. But your kind has reached the stars now. The old ways must change." "Will you reveal yourselves to everyone?" Karen asked. "Gradually," Sentinel said. "Too much, too quickly would cause fear. But yes, humans should know they are not alone on their world. Have never been alone." Powell looked out at the ocean. "The Vrellans won't be the last alien species to come to Earth. Now that word is spreading about what happened here. Earth will gain immediate recognition in the galactic community," Sentinel agreed. "Not as newcomers, but as the home of 2 evolved intelligences that others have feared for millennia." "Is it true?" Powell asked. "What Zevex said about other species avoiding Earth? About us being known as the Shadow World?" "Yes," Sentinel answered. "Many have watched from afar. All follow the same principle. Avoid the planet where the darkest species in the galaxy nurtures its strange human companions." "Darkest species?" Powell frowned. "That doesn't sound very flattering." Sentinel made a sound that might have been laughter. "Darkness is not evil, Commander. It is ancient, powerful, mysterious. We evolved in the spaces between light. We are part of Earth's balance." The Guardian shifted, moving between shadow and substance in the moonlight. "We have always been here, waiting for you to be ready for the stars. The others fear us because they don't understand. We aren't Earth's darkness. We are its oldest protectors." Powell nodded slowly, understanding more than he could have imagined just weeks ago. Earth was entering a new age. Humans would no longer walk alone into the galaxy. They would go with allies who had evolved alongside them in the shadows of their world. "The Vrellans have opened their ancient archives to us," Karen said. "They contain records of dozens of alien civilizations that have monitored Earth over the millennia. And now they'll all want to make contact," Powell said. "Yes," Sentinel agreed, "but they will approach with caution and respect, because now they know for certain what the Vrellans have told them for 20,000 years. Earth is protected by something darker than they could imagine, something that considers humans family." Powell smiled as he watched the Guardians, shadowy form against the night sky. "I think I'm okay with being the planet everyone's a little afraid of. This is your only warning. Powell said. "Leave Earth space now, or there won't be any of you left to tell the story." Through his link with Sentinel, Powell could feel the power the Guardians possessed. It wasn't weapons or technology as humans understood it. It was the ability to manipulate the very fabric of reality, to bend space, time, and energy to their will. Powers that had evolved over millions of years in Earth's unique dimensional crossroads.